Welcome back to our running program. Thank you for tuning in, and if you're just joining us, I'm your host and moderator for the evening, Zachariah Hughes. So far, we've already heard from candidates for Anchorage Assembly seats A and D. In each segment, candidates are asked a series of questions and allotted a certain amount of time to answer. They also had the opportunity to ask questions of an opponent before a short rebuttal. We're talking to the two candidates for seat F in Midtown. I'm joined now by Mr. Ron Alleva. Welcome.
Thank you, Zachary.
All right, and also Mr. Dick Traney, the incumbent. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, let's get right into it. So, Mr. Alleva, why don't you start us off with your opening remarks?
Sure. I'm Ron Alleva, a 42-year resident of Anchorage. I'm married, have 5 children, all grown. I'm in business for myself. I have been a real estate broker and auctioneer for almost 38 years here in Anchorage, and I'm applying my life experiences and business experiences to fill the position of seat F. And I believe I have the qualifications, the education, and the background to make the best decisions for Anchorage's future.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. And Mr. Traney, your opening remarks.
Thanks. I'm Dick Traney. I'm running for re-election to the Assembly. I moved up here in 1971. I've got 8 kids, all a product of the Anchorage School District. I've got a master's degree in public administration. I've got another degree in planning. So I've got the background to do this. And I enjoy the Assembly. I've been on it for a few years. And with the voters, I hope to stay for another term.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you both. We're going to go right into the questions now. And Mr. Alleva, we'll start with you. Just assuming that the state continues to drop the amount of aid that it's providing to the city, how would you look, if elected to the Assembly, to close the budget gap? What specific policies for either reducing or shoring up revenues?
Well, I think one of the gaps is a lot of the nonprofits and even religious organizations have had exemptions in real estate, along with other exemptions for veterans and even senior citizens. If we lose that, they're going to have to fill in that gap. But I'm looking at an ordinance that would, if churches and nonprofits who take property off the tax rolls are paying insurance premium, why couldn't we put a surcharge on that in order to make up that budget gap to pay for the police force or the fire department or paramedics, anything that they're benefiting from as a free ride?
Okay, and Mr. Traney, the same question to you on closing gaps.
Okay. Well, part of the problem that Ron brought up is state law says you can't. The state has dictated what we have to get exemptions to. So you'd have to change the state law to make what Ron's talking about happen. It will not happen in Alaska. As we look at where we can increase the revenue, one is the marijuana tax that's coming in front of the voters on April 5th. It's a new industry coming to Anchorage. And what we've got is a 5% tax on this that allow us to hire code enforcement officers, a police officer. So as the city expands what it does, we can start to fill that gap, because there is a real gap coming, and Juneau is going to put it on our backs.
Okay, and extending that just a little bit, what are your funding priorities? What are the services that you think are essential and that you'd fight for if re-elected?
Police and fire, everything comes secondary. If you don't have a safe town, you don't have a town. And I hear complaints all the time from people that have been broken into, whose cars are stolen from their own yard, who come home and find their back door broken. And they call the police department and they're told, don't worry, we'll get there in 5 hours. That's unacceptable. We've got to make sure that public safety is the first priority. Everything else comes secondary to that.
Okay, Mr. Alleva, same question to you.
Well, first of all, if I can rebut that, the state doesn't control all the exemptions as far as taxing nonprofits or religious organizations, and some do voluntarily pay the tax, and I think we have to tap into that pool to narrow the gap. As far as my priorities, I think that stimulating and creating an environment for jobs is going to what pays for the police, the education, the social services, the street maintenance. So if you started at the top, of course safety is important, but if there's no economy in Anchorage and it's not a welcoming, positive environment for people to produce in Anchorage, we're not going to have the money to pay the police department.
Okay,
And-
I'm going to have to end you
Okay,
there.
that's fine.
We've hit the 45-second mark.
Oh, no,
so,
I was watching the yellow light.
and
Well, I was coming on.
Okay.
So the next question is also about resources, and we'll start here about public schools. And I'm curious, with less money coming from the state for public education, how you imagine the school district and public education in Anchorage changing in the next 3 years.
Well, everyone's going to tighten their belt. They passed a pretty big budget last night. I think it was 492 million, 262 from the city. I think one of the things that we have to do is get the joint effort of duplicate services between the school district and the city. The city runs the buses, the school district needs buses. You have the same type maintenance to keep buses safe. And I think they have to start seeing that doubling up is not the way to go. They have to streamline that.
Okay. And Mr. Trainey, the same question to you on how you imagine financing of public education
Well,
changing.
the budget we set for the school district last night was $746 million. We fund about a fourth of what the school district gets. The rest comes from both state and federal. And when you look at the state constitution, it says very clearly, education responsibility of the state. And so we've got to keep putting pressure on Juneau to understand they can't simply back away from their obligation for public education. That's not going to happen. And how do we cure that? There is a way to do it. Years ago, back in 1989, last time I looked at it, the Assembly gave away control of the school district buildings. We simply have referendum, or the Assembly simply reverses that decision. Then all the school district buildings belong to the city, and then we can unify maintenance of the buildings. Because right now we've got a turf war going on between the city and the school district. This would solve that problem permanently.
Okay.
It can simply do it.
The next question that I'm curious about, it's changing gears just a little bit, but as far as transportation and infrastructure, what projects do you want to see advanced through the Assembly when it comes to transportation and infrastructure?
Local roads, for example, if you took a look at this bond issue coming up on the 5th of April, we've got money in for Sylvan Drive. We're asking the voters to approve $4.5 million. And Sylvan Drive is off of Old Seward Highway, and it's a road that desperately needs to be built up. I've been there numerous times when that starts flooding those neighbors. There's no money coming from the state, so we're going to have to bond for our own construction in Anchorage. And that's going to be the Assembly's job, is to set the priorities for that, as we did with Sylvan Drive.
Okay, and Mr. Oliva, the same question to you on transportation and infrastructure changes you'd like to see.
Well, I think when you talk transportation, I think first of the port for building that, and that's the key window and door opening to the entire state, and that would filter the whole state economy through Anchorage, which it does anyway. As far as any roads in particular, I'm kind of against the UMed road slicing the campus here. You have to be more of a visionary and understand that the campuses of Berkeley, Stanford, even where I attended, the University of Wisconsin, they made it more pedestrian friendly, more bicycle friendly, and less high-speed traffic. So we're looking to the future. We don't want a road dissecting this beautiful campus.
Okay, and another question I'm curious about, particularly in Midtown, is how you'd like to see cannabis businesses develop in the next 1 to 3 years in the Midtown district.
Well, I have to be very open. I voted against the marijuana bill. I don't think we're set up to tax it enough to really regulate it. I think even if I rent, and I'm concerned about that because my own properties are available for marijuana grow operations. As far as it being a source of revenue, it's like a liquor tax. It's a slippery slope. We'll keep doing it until it goes to the black market, no different than bootlegging liquor to the villages. So it is a major concern. It's going to cost us a lot of money before it makes us money.
Okay, and Mr. Trainey, the same question to you on how you'd like to see commercial.
Whether we voted for it or not, it's irrelevant. I voted against it too, but the problem is it's coming. And how do we deal with it is the problem. We wrote a law so that they can't go near the rescue mission. Yet I see a sign went up a week ago cannabis operation right across the street from the rescue mission. So as we deal with this, we're going to have to make sure they follow the letter of the law. And we're going to have to, like I said, we got a 5% tax coming on the 5th of April. If that's approved, then every couple of years we can increase it by 2% as we start to figure out what the impact of this business is going to be. There's a lot of people that want to get in the cannabis business. People you never dreamed would do that, but they want to get into it. So we got to figure out how we make it work for this town, because it is coming.
Okay. We're going to take a break from me asking you questions, and now you guys have an opportunity to ask questions of each other. So, Mr. Oliva, starting with you, you have the opportunity to ask Mr. Traney 2 questions, and Mr. Traney will have time for a response, and then, sir, a rebuttal.
Okay, Dick, I respect your educational background and your experience, and after 17 years of being in public office, could you name for me the 3 biggest accomplishments you made in Anchorage?
Sure, be glad to. Besides having my kids grow up here, the secondhand smoking ordinance was a very successful ordinance. We brought everybody together, we passed it. Another one would be the towing ordinance. We brought the towing ordinance together, so we solved the problem of the predatory towing that was going on. And the other one would be the law that I wrote, that we put into effect, that requires smoke and CO2 detectors in every apartment in Anchorage. And that saved countless lives when that detector goes off. And those are just 3 of them that we've done that have been very successful.
Okay, and Mr. Oliva, a rebuttal from you if you'd like.
Well, those are the top 3 accomplishments. Smoke-free environment, smoke detectors, and the 3rd one was?
Towing ordinance, I
The
believe.
towing ordinance. But Dick, we lost $30 million on computers in technology. We're still working on that. And what about the port? It's been a failure and we're in a big lawsuit. If you said something to that effect, like why isn't it the port? Or why isn't it getting the legislature to move to Anchorage? Something more massive for 17 years of service.
And unfortunately, we don't have
Because
time
it's
for a
not.
rebuttal, Mr. Traney, but it is your opportunity to ask a question of Mr. Oliva now.
Ron, have you read the PERF report, and what do you think about its implication?
Which report?
The PERF report.
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, one was done in 2010, one was just done recently. It indicates how many police officers we have to have on the street for a town our size. And that's what our goal is for the next 3 years, to make sure we reach the goal that's in the PERF report.
Okay, I'm going to interpret that as a question, a rebuttal, or a response and a rebuttal. And Mr.
Well,
Oliva, it's now your opportunity for another question of Mr. Traney, if you've got one.
Well, Dick, you've pushed for public safety in Anchorage with 2 new academies. Even if we spread those officers out, you voted to raise the fines, the traffic fines, to cover 1.6 million of the police budget. What type of public relations move is that to raise fines and still want them to be community servants and get along with the community? It just seems
I am
like
gonna have to ask you to keep
I've
the
never
question.
thanked an officer for giving me a ticket for a taillight being out.
Okay, and I am going to cut you off there
Okay.
because we have about 20
That's
seconds
fine.
for the question. So, Mr. Traney, your response.
No problem. We raised the fees to cover the cost of the officers we've got on the street. We had to figure out, how do you do this to make the cost cars the cost payers? So we did increase the fees. And they're probably not going to thank the officer for stopping them, but we did it.
Okay, and a rebuttal from you.
Well, I just don't see an officer paying his own salary with tickets that he writes. I mean, that's kind of self-serving, and I feel that's wrong. But more importantly, we don't have enough prosecutors, and then they're going to release 726 prisoners. Where's the win situation in this?
Mr. Traney, it is your opportunity to ask a question. I'm sorry, sir, that there's not time for a rebuttal.
Time for rebuttal, huh? Have you looked at the SAP program that was brought forward to us by Mayor Sullivan at a $9.6 million cost? You mentioned it briefly. Have you looked at what happened with that computerization?
Could you be specific? What happened with the SAP?
Have you looked at
No, I haven't.
its cost?
No,
Okay.
no, you said 9.6 million.
Yeah, well, it's now up to $70 million.
and I'm going to interpret that as a response and a rebuttal. And
That's fine.
Okay, we're going to move back into questions. I had one about SAP, but I think I'm going to put that on the back burner and ask one specific to Midtown. Mr. Cheney, how do you balance parks and green space in the Midtown district, and what have you done on the Assembly to push for that, and how will you
Well, I
continue
brought
pushing?
Waldron Lake online. We worked for years to get the money. We were able to overcome a governor's veto. The second time he didn't veto it. And we got $4 million and we bought Waldron Lake. It's now owned by the citizens of this town. All of us own it. And it's a great place for people 17 acres, to enjoy the geese that come there and the greenness of that area.
Okay.
So we're working on it. Plus I've got money for $350,000 on this bond package to put a bike path in over at the old fire station. The mayor and I tore that down with a sledgehammer, and then they brought the heavy equipment in. But we're going to put bicycle parking in there. It's on the bicycle path. It's on Waldron Lake.
And Mr. Oliva, it's the same question to you. How would you push for parks and green space in Midtown if elected?
Well, I've always been a big advocate of the bike path, and that'll take you to any park, and it seems to have limited use but increased use. So I think we have enough parks. As far as protecting them, I would continue my efforts to maintain and make the bike system grow, and everyone can have access to the parks and rec.
Okay, and this is a similar question, but I'm curious to hear your vision of how you'd like to see Midtown develop in the next 3 to 10 years.
Well, I would really push for multiple reasons the UMed district. I think that the facility of academics, the facility of medical, whether it be patient medical research, outpatient, I think that should continue to grow. And with that, housing and infrastructure would grow around that, and it'd be a real anchor to Midtown. So I would push that.
And Mr. Cheney, your vision for Midtown as it develops?
Well, you know, we just approved the Midtown plan, an update to it that'll set where we're going with Midtown as far as university, both UAA and APU. But beyond that, we've got hotels springing up all over Midtown, and we've got to figure out how we deal with the influx of all the hotels. In fact, there's a new one that's going to be opening up next to Lowe's, 300-room hotel. If you take a look at Midtown, it's become the hotel part of Anchorage. We got to figure out how we deal with that and the implications that people are going to be walking around here and places for them to eat.
Well, you're
So-
a long-term resident. I'm curious if you're happy. with
Since
that.
'85, huh?
I'm curious if you're happy with those developments. I mean, the more
Yes.
hotels.
My only concern is the amount of transients we have here. How do we deal? Because I hear from business owners all the time. They said, how do we deal with the transit problem in Midtown? And that's something we've got to keep working on. It's the reason I fought them trying to move the bus transfer station over to the park area.
Okay, a question on housing, and I'm curious to hear what your vision is for housing across the municipality, as well as in Midtown in the years ahead.
Well, I think all of us want low-cost housing, but the problem is, where's the land at? And the available land right now is the Kootenai Nave Corporation. They've got the bulk of the land in Anchorage, out in the river area. And we've just got to encourage that corporation to take their land and move it into private ownership so we can encourage development in that area.
And Mr. Oliva, for you, how would you like to see housing develop in Anchorage?
Well, first of all, I think there's going to be some vacant housing here within the next 2 years. I'm not a gloom and doom person, but it's obvious if you've been here during a recession, we're in it now. It's going to get worse. We're going to see a slowdown in housing, and when the building comes back, if oil prices come back and Anchorage is going to grow, that would be more on the 8-year basis, then it's going to be very selective, and I think we will grow up and grow out. Dick's right about Eklutna. They had a big development there, industrial land, housing. When they're ready to release it, we can move to the east.
Okay, and a question to you, how do you evaluate the job that this current mayor has done so far in office?
Well, I rated him as a B minus. I know Ethan and I supported him. I think I can work well with him, but he needs to surround himself with the best and the brightest. And I think he's still on a learning curve of municipal issues toning it down from his Juneau experience. So he's still being schooled, and I think he's making adjustments, but not as rapid as he would if I was on the assembly.
Okay, Mr. Trainey, it's the same question to you on this administration.
This administration is doing remarkably well. I've worked with 6 mayors, and I can rate all of them. And this is the best I've seen since Begich was mayor of this town. This mayor takes what the citizens feel to heart. In fact, he's actually started sending his people to community council meetings. I go to 9 community councils a month, and the last mayor had a contractor that would show up occasionally. This mayor actually has his own staff showing up to talk to the community council to find out what their interest is, and then take it back to the mayor. He's doing a great job outreaching to community councils.
Okay, and on one specific point, I'm curious to hear what your opinion is of the administration's expanded purchase of the natural gas claim in Cook Inlet, and do you think this is a responsible investment for
Since I voted for it, I think it's a great investment. I mean, think about it. We're going to have a 20-year, well, actually longer, till 2033, we've got a solid set of resources for natural gas coming into Anchorage. Fairbanks would kill themselves to have what we've got out here. And for us to be able to pick it up at the cost we're going to pay for it is remarkable. This means that Chugach Electric customers, it means MLP customers will all have a steady source of gas coming in and electricity they can count on. And that's important when you've got business coming to Anchorage, because they want to know what's the cost of both gas and electricity. Us owning that helps us.
Okay, and Mr. Leva, the same
deal.
question to you on the Beluga River unit purchase.
Well, Jim Posey, the former MLNP manager, started that, and he saved the ratepayers millions of dollars. And to continue that process is a very wise financial investment on the part of the city. And I think the rate holders should be thankful for that.
Okay, and a question for you. Do you believe that the municipality is too tightly or too loosely regulated right now when it comes to building? And I'm curious to hear your solutions for development.
Well, Title 21 and the building codes, there's, to me, once you deal the cards or basically have a deck of cards, play with the same deck. I think that too many times you go before planning and zoning, here's a variance, here's a conditional use, here's a restricted use, and it goes on and on and on. It's almost like you're not sure what the rules are, because anything can be changed, appealed, given an exemption, and I don't think that makes it a ripe economic environment for developers to move forward.
Okay.
And you can't change the rules in the middle of the game.
Mr. Trainey, regulation on building in the municipality.
Well, we worked on Title 21 for about 14 years. I made Debbie Osiander the chairman of that committee, and I said, eventually you've got to get done before you leave the office. That finally happened. But the Title 21 process is not done yet. It's still ongoing. That's the reason I've got Amy Dabowski as the head of that program. Because Title 21, all of aspects of it are not done yet. It's a continually developing process.
This is a little bit, I think, more interpretive, but I'm curious where you get your information on the concerns of people living in your district.
I get them from all the community councils I attend. I get them from all the emails. Believe me, we've got a rezoning that's going on the hillside, 72.66 acres. I must have had 35 if I had one email from people saying, don't do this, and this is why. It's wonderful because today's day and age, electronic media is just a fantastic tool.
And Mr.
I get them all the
Elliott,
time.
as you've been preparing to campaign and make yourself known, how have you gotten information on Midtown concerns?
Well, I think it's not only Midtown, it's the entire city of Anchorage. And you don't have to attend the assembly meetings to watch them. And then I enjoy my 4:30 in the morning to maybe 6:30 of just reading and researching and looking at different opinions and facts. Fact finding, is this the best way to go? So you can always have two sides to every story. You have to be able to decipher the facts and the most important data on both sides, and then you form your own opinion, just like making a decision on the assembly. And that's what I do, and that's where I get my facts.
Okay, my last question for the both of you is, we'll start with you, Mr. Leva, but what voices do you not think are being heard on the Assembly right now, and what's your plan for bringing those in?
Well, I have a 26%, I think, was the last turnout in the election, but it's always low. And yet, I think if you vote, and I'm going to recommend to everyone to get out and vote, it seems to be excitement across the nation. But here in Anchorage, I think there's a lot of apathy, and you have to motivate people. If it's not affecting them directly, they're pretty apathetic, and anyone can say, hey, they're all a bunch of crooks, there's a lot of fraud. Well, the only way to change that is stimulate them enough to get out and vote. And if they don't vote for me, they're welcome to vote for Dick, but at least vote in the form of a protest that you're out there watching, because too many people measure election results by who's concerned and who isn't.
And Mr. Traney, to you.
I think we reach out to everybody in Anchorage. Our Assembly meetings are completely open and gives people a chance to come and talk to us on any issue that's in front of us. And my favorite part is item 17 on the agenda. It's anything else we haven't discussed. So it's open for anybody to come talk to us from anything dealing with fluoride to aliens coming to Anchorage. But as we deal with increasing the voter turnout, we're now going vote by mail. In fact, if you look what we passed last night, we have set a deadline for April of 2017. We're going to do vote by mail, and that's going to change how we vote in Anchorage, and I think it'll increase the voter turnout.
All right, thank you both for keeping things so civil and moving things along. We've gotten to the end, and so Mr. Aleva, your closing remarks, if you have them, sir.
Well, I liked your last question. If I had a closing remark, I would encourage everyone to not only inspire themselves to get out and vote, but take a relative, take a neighbor, make some phone calls to motivate people to get out and vote on the bonds issue, and hey, elect representatives that reflect your ideas and idealistic ones for the future of Anchorage.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Aleva. Mr. Traney, your closing remarks.
Just that I would encourage everybody to get involved in this election, because this is how democracy works. You know, America, the whole election process is still a process being developed. And other countries would die to have the system we have and have. I hope people understand how important the system is, and April 1st, April 5th, they come and vote for us.
Great. Thank you both for being here. That's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us. You just heard for the candidates vying for Seat F in Midtown on the April 5th election. Up next, we'll be joined by Mr. Forrest Dunbar and Mr. Teray Gales, the two candidates for Seat H in East Anchorage. Stay tuned.